The 4 profiles that should move to Italy, which one are you? I'm Italian and I've spent the last decade living abroad, watching my country from a distance. For most of the time, the view wasn't encouraging. There was a stagnant economy, brain drain, and overall a very severe bureaucratic paralysis. Italy was the place you visited for a vacation, not the place where you moved to build a life. But something has quietly shifted. Italy is back and it has built one of Europe's top arbitrage and lifestyle opportunities. Now, this is not an opportunity for everyone, there are nuances. And overall, Italy has 4 distinct pathways, each designed for a different profile, perhaps at a different stage of life. In the next 15 minutes, I'll break down all 4 profiles from remote professionals to retirees to high net worth individuals so you can figure out exactly which category you fall in. Because Italy works beautifully for certain people, but for others, it makes no sense at all. Let's dive in. Here is how I think about Italy. 4 profiles, 4 pathways, 4 completely different value propositions. I've written extensively about Italy's turnaround recently, the wealth migration data, the tax regimes, the tax exemption regime specifically, the new Italian renaissance. But if you're not subscribed to my Substack where I share these takes weekly, make sure to check it out. You can check the comments for the link right now. Besides all these technicalities, what I keep getting asked in person is far more practical. Should I consider Italy? Should I relocate there with my family? If so, how should I do it? The answer, my friends, depends really on who you are, in which phase of life, which is the net worth, which are your personal objectives. And what I really care to share with you is that what people don't realize is that typically Italy is associated with a great lifestyle, and typically the conversations end in that specific moment. The reality is that in the recent years with the tax exemption regimes, like it or not, Italy has become a strategic place for many, and the data confirm that. It can be lifestyle, of course, but it can be also strategic. So let me break down each one of these profiles, and by the end you will know exactly which category you fall into. Profile 1 is the remote professional. You're earning between $50,000 and $300,000 and you are working remotely. You may be a software developer, you may be a designer, you can be a consultant, or perhaps you're running a small agency. But what it matters is that you have location flexibility, so you can literally work from anywhere. If that's the case for you and you don't want, second condition, optimized for pure tax, well, Italy, this can be a fantastic choice for you. The impatriate regime gives you a 50% tax exemption on your taxable income for 5 years. And if you have a dependent child, so you're already in the family stage, this increases to 60%. What does it mean in practice? I'm not going to bore you with details, but as a ballpark figure, imagine that your tax rate on income drops to roughly 10-12%. Please keep in mind that social security in Italy is not cheap, it's going to be at least 20% on top. So this is not a pure tax play, but even if the total burden in the end will be closer to 30%, you for sure are not going to experience the single digit that you can experience elsewhere, but you have, of course, the right to rely on the services provided by Italy. Let's make some examples to make this more tangible, okay? On a salary of 55,000 euro, let's say that you are keeping roughly 40,000 euro after all taxes and all contributions. And in secondary Italian cities like Bologna, Siena, Marche region, well, you can rent a beautiful apartment for perhaps 800 euro, 1,000 euro per month. A proper Saturday dinner with an excellent wine, maybe it will run about 35-45 euro per person. This is not going to be the 100 euro plus in Dubai for eventually, sometimes not great food, at least not great comparable to Italy. But as you may know, I am biased on this. This works overall. Why? Because Italy, in the end, hasn't adjusted to the global remote worker economies yet, perhaps as Portugal and certain areas of Spain have done. If you look at the real estate market in the Italian secondary cities, in my view, still remains generally affordable. And overall, the infrastructure is very good and the quality of life is, in my biased opinion, of course, unmatched. Who this opportunity is not for. If paying zero taxes is your absolute priority, go to Dubai. Go to the UAE, Abu Dhabi is a great place, go to Thailand, there are many other opportunities. But if you want actually maybe a different local culture, a different historic place, perhaps a 10 euro truffle pasta on the weekends while paying reasonable taxes, well, this is the setup for you. Of course, it doesn't last forever, it's a 5-year tax regime, but it's something. The requirements for benefiting of this regime are university degree or demonstrable high-level professional experience, and you need to commit to stay at least 4 years. You can't have been Italian tax resident for the previous 3 years. Here is the key point. So you can invoice clients worldwide as a freelancer based in Italy. So very importantly, For many of you eventually, there is no specific need of having necessarily either an Italian employer, a local company, or eventually only as a freelancer with your company, only Italian clients. Where to go? In my view, for this play, you should look into secondary cities over Milan and Rome. Why? Because it doesn't really make sense. Bologna has an incredible energy, university town, objectively is genuinely affordable, great city. Siena, one of my favorite cities overall. Also, check it out, the Marche region is almost entirely undiscovered by foreign remote workers. But if you want more coast, as you are maybe more a sea person like me, I think you should consider the Ligurian border towns, the so-called Italian Riviera. I wrote extensively about these places. I think you could check it out, like Sanremo, Bordighera, Ventimiglia, and so far and so on. Why? Eventually you can get the Italian tax residency with some tax exemptions. You have France in maybe 15-30 minutes away. And if you want some networking maybe in an old-fashioned eventually city, Monaco, after all, will be about 40 minutes away. You have 3 countries with 3 cost structures, 3 different networks in one single place. By the way, if you're new here, in the coming weeks I'll be sharing many updates and strategies when it comes to Europe specifically, so make sure to hit the subscribe button to follow along. Now, let's move into profile number 2, which is the researcher or the R&D professional. You work in research, either a university or in an R&D role, perhaps in a tech company or in a startup. Well, you work in a genuinely innovative environment, and let's say that you can demonstrate it. Why Italy works for you. The researcher regime offers you a 90% tax exemption for up to 13 years with so many nuances. It's a very niche topic, so I'm going to drop it here very quickly, but if you have friends, if you have family members that perhaps fall into this category, please reach out to them. This is an incredibly underrated opportunity, I think, worldwide. And I almost never see anyone talking about it, and if you ask an Italian about this opportunity, probably they will be completely unaware of it. The duration of it is very also interesting. It's not going to last just 5 years, but up to 13. 90% tax exemption, guys, it means that you are going to have eventually as an effective tax rate something in the range of 2-3%. Again, there is going to be social security on top of it, but still you're going to have essentially a Singapore-like tax regime, but in Italy. For the right person, I think this is truly extraordinary. It's not limited to university professors, it potentially covers R&D professionals working in innovative startups as well, and almost nobody knows about this. When I've consulted with tax professionals about it, they consistently flag it as the most generous. For sure, the opportunity that is right now the least utilized in the Italy, let's say, toolkit. Where to go in this case? Well, this depends more on your employer or the institution you work for than really your own lifestyle preferences. I mean, if you're a researcher and you can also choose to work remotely only, well, you have all my blessing. I love the lifestyle you are choosing for yourself, but in more reasonable cases, I think your choice will be predetermined by other conditions. I would say that in general terms, Milan and Rome have the most research infrastructure, but university towns like Bologna, Padua is overall one of my favorite cities. Turin also, very quiet, very orderly, offer an excellent quality of life at a lower cost. And now let's get into the profile number 3, the retiree. You have built your wealth, you are receiving your pension every single month after a life of work, you are finally thinking about and you are free to think of where you can spend the next chapter of your life, and you want somewhere with genuine quality of life, but not just pure tax optimization. I think that Italy right now is the best opportunity for you, and Italy has, I would say, created something genuinely competitive with any other program. Why? Because the old NHR regime in Portugal allowing you to pay 10% on taxes doesn't exist anymore. But the good news is that you can relocate to Italy and pay 7% as a flat tax on all foreign income for you as a retiree when you relocate in a southern or sometimes central region in small towns. Before we get into the details, it's very important to keep in mind that this exemption, or actually this regime with a unified universal 7%, applies not only to pensions, but applies also to dividends, capital gains, rental income from abroad. So it's a universal 7% from any foreign source of income of any sort. So in my view, this is something very interesting. There is only one catch that you need to keep in mind. There is a location restriction. You need to establish your tax residency in a municipality with fewer than 20,000 inhabitants in one of the 8 southern regions like Sicily, Calabria, Sardinia, Campania, Basilicata, Abruzzo, Molise, or Puglia. Some here southern region and imagine exile. By the way, there are also some central regions in specific places that were affected by earthquakes in the past, so check it out. I also post about this quite often on X. Sorrento qualifies, Taormina that you perhaps have seen in one of the recent seasons of the White Lotus, and amazing coastal Sardinian towns like Bosa or Carloforte qualify. Castellabate in Campania is a UNESCO World Heritage with 9,000 residents, is perfectly eligible for the 7% regime. For an American retiree, I think with a pension and investment portfolio portfolio generating what, about 150k annually? Well, this equation objectively is very compelling because you're going to pay roughly in that case about 10.5k in total Italian tax. You're living on the Mediterranean, your healthcare is covered by the Italian system, you can be in proximity of different centers, larger ones, you're not confined by the places eventually only in a specific region of the south, and you can also do some additional planning with private healthcare systems and so far and so on. If we want to consider a few places where to go eventually, well, Puglia, in my view, could be a great option that you should consider, you could consider. Puglia has seen 8% year-over-year increase in foreign property searches, and at the same time, the prices remain overall a fraction of Portugal. Italy, in my view, and I'm not in real estate, so I'm telling you, with no commercial interest of sort, I think could be an opportunity also in terms of real estate, but it's not my field. Some towns that I keep coming back to, even when I discuss this with my Italian friends, I think Castellabate for families who want a community can be a great option. The famous Taormina, who eventually is the right choice for those ones who want beauty and a bit of more infrastructure, but of course it's a touristic place. Otranto in Puglia for those who want eventually experience the Adriatic, and Bose in Sardinia for those who want a bit more isolation and at the same time keeping up a really high quality of life. Profile number 4 is the high net worth individual. Let's say that your net worth exceeds 10 million. You have built something significant in your life. Maybe you have had, you accumulated wealth as an investor, as an entrepreneur. You have made maybe your exit in tech or not in tech. Well, now it's the moment where you are finally thinking strategically about where to base yourself for the upcoming years, and you want to maintain both lifestyle and optionality, and perhaps your wife is in love with Italy and insisting on, well, there is only one place where I would be very happy to relocate. Jokes aside, I think in your case, Italy can be right now a good option. Things change fast, as you probably know. The Italian flat tax went from 100k to 200k per year. Now it will move eventually to higher thresholds. So let me give you my own interpretation and at least the 2 different approaches and pathways that could be interesting to hear for you. Path number 1, the lifestyle play. If you're planning to actually live in Italy and you have significant foreign income, well, the 200k lump sum tax is the play. It's potentially very good and it's a super simple, straightforward structure. You pay 200,000 euro per year and all your foreign income is exempt from Italian taxation for 15 years. There is no wealth tax, no inheritance tax on foreign assets, there is no disclosure requirements which are particularly heavy for you. Overall, if you're earning 10 million abroad and you pay perhaps eventually 4 millions in the UK across taxes, to be frank, the Italian lump sum is something fantastic for you. It's of course no brainer, and that's why eventually this program has been so successful. Over 4,000 people applied in the first half of 2024 alone, and that was a 4 times increase over 2023 despite the regime cost doubling. This is the sort of Cristiano Ronaldo lifestyle play. You can spend eventually your working week in Milan, your kids go to international schools in Milan, you can go during the weekends in Lake Como, skiing in St. Moritz, Sardinia in summer. I think you have 15 years of your life and you are really living at best. The question I get from people in this bracket, typically maybe 10, 50 million net worth, in general is why should I choose this opportunity compared to Dubai? My honest answer is that Dubai has some seriously overlooked cons. Dubai is a fantastic, or the UAE, Abu Dhabi, they're fantastic places, they work for many, but after 4 years, I think that overall there is this constant feeling of being in a transient place. The cultural depth is there for sure, but it's not as easy to access as different places like perhaps in Europe. Culture, food, quality, style, if you're into these things, especially in Milan eventually. So ultimately, yeah, it's going to cost you a bit more in direct taxation, but overall you may save money compared to a more expensive life, I would say, proportionally and for the same type of eventually quality in Dubai. If you want to enjoy what you've built, I think Italy can be the right answer for you. Where specifically in Italy? This is also another important question. I think Milan overall is where the action is. The city has transformed over the past decade and it's now generally international. So there are excellent restaurants, there are of course strong business networks, and that kind of energy that London had perhaps a few years ago and eventually still has. Of course, compared to London, definitely better weather and considerably better food. Lake Como remains the prestige play. Of course, in Venice, well, if you can handle the logistics, offers something that perhaps no other city on earth can match. Another place, once again, the Italian Riviera, Portofino, the surroundings, puts you eventually 2 hours from Milan with a completely different pace of life. Now let's get to the second option, the second pathway. I call it the optionality play. This is of course very different. Let's say that you want to have Italian access, but you don't want to commit to live there. Let's say that eventually you live a few months per year in a different country, perhaps in the UAE, perhaps in Thailand, in the US, wherever you want, but at the same time you want to be able to spend time in Italy. The Italian investor visa, improperly the Italian golden visa, allows you to invest 250,000 euro in an innovative startup, and it does carry zero stay requirements. Essentially, it lasts 2 years as initial permit, after which it's renewable for 3-year periods indefinitely. Critically, you invest only after having the visa in your hand, so after the approval, so you don't have the risk of committing the capital, and then you apply, and then you perhaps wait months or years before your visa is issued. In this case, it's the other way around. Citizenship Italia is my company. We built a specific structure in Italy. We operate globally. Citizenship Italia Milan specifically, it's a Bitcoin Italian company. You invest 250,000 euro in the equity of the company, and in this way you can qualify for the Italian investor visa, at the same time maintaining exposure to Bitcoin. If you want to learn more, you can find all the information on our website, www.bcitizenship.com. It's like citizenship with the B, or Bitcoin citizenship in the same word with the .com after. Our team is fully available for discussing with you. We launched it and immediately we got over 100 leads. We pre-launched, we already fundraised 2 million plus. We have an important, actually at this point, let's call it community of people who I think appreciate this kind of angle and product, and if you want to consider him to be eventually one of them, get in touch. As great as the Italian lifestyle is, I want to be very honest about what Italy does not offer for you, so keep this really in mind. If you're launching a tech company, I'm very sorry to say that right now, if you move to Italy and you want to operate in Italy, this may frustrate you, especially if you are Anglo-Saxon, if you come from the States, from Canada. At this stage, to be very frank, Italy is still highly bureaucratic. Notaries, bylaws, civil code, and ultimately, as I explained to you already, even for the impatriate regime, eventually the tax exemption applies on certain aspects, in this case the income, but doesn't remove, for example, the social security duties. If you are comparing and looking for eventually pure zero tax jurisdictions, Italy is not that country. You may want to look somewhere else. If you're looking for a pathway to citizenship without relocating in a place, Portugal is still the only place, and that's the program you should look into despite the recent changes or the future upcoming changes. If you look, of course, for a pure optimization play, again, Italy is not for you. Why? Because if your top priority is to optimize for not paying taxes, I think you should reasonably right now look into other places like the UAE in general, perhaps Paraguay, eventually Thailand, and you will pay less. And at the same time, you may be completely happy there. So Italy, it can be a fantastic opportunity for some people, but it's not the best opportunity for many. This is my personal take, my opinion, which is backed by lots of data and direct knowledge, direct feedback, but I want to give you, as always, all the pros, all the cons, and the choice is always yours. The wealth migration data, the financial market performance, the stabilization of public finances, the indicators are all there for Italy. There has been also recently a good analysis on the Financial Times that actually suggests that Europe should learn from the Italian case. What I'm telling you with this video is that if you are a certain person in a specific stage of your life, a remote professional, maybe looking for lifestyle over pure optimization, if you are a retiree, for sure, no-brainer. If you're a researcher, no-brainer. Or if you're an investor or someone who has a high net worth at this point after an exit and you want to enjoy for 15 years life, well, the flat tax is, in my view, very much worth to consider. My personal take is perfection when it comes to places, jurisdictions, and in general life is very rarely achievable. There are other places that are optimized for different goals, as I was telling you, but the truth and the key message that I try to share across my channels is that ultimately in the AI age, you can replicate Singapore, you can replicate a good piece of software, but you can't replicate Florence, you can't replicate the Pantheon in Rome, and so far and so on. Very important, if you are considering this, check these opportunities out right now. Things change fast. As always, build in the US dollar, spend in euro eventually, save in Bitcoin, and of course, if you decide to relocate in Italy, live longer and happier. And of course, as adjacent benefit, you may learn one of the best Italian cuisine, and you may develop as main cons eventually a legitimate skepticism towards other cuisines like perhaps the French one. Thanks for watching, and ciao for now.